Hey guys, welcome to a weekly question video. If you like these question videos, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already, and leave a comment down below. All those things really do help out the channel. And if you want to help support what we do here, help us continue to do it, the best place to do that is over on Patreon, so a link to our Patreon is down below. So as you can see, Coda is with me today, and that's because the question is something that I really wanted his perspective on and his voice to, as well as my own, because I feel like this is something that I could speak on my own, but it might be better to have the head of household perspective on this one. And that is a question that I've gotten a lot, actually. I've gotten it a lot over the years, but especially recently, I've gotten this question quite a few times, and that is, who holds the head of household accountable? In a domestic discipline relationship, we talk a lot about accountability, and specifically about the accountability that a head of household bestows upon the taken in hand. But a head of household is still human. They still make mistakes. They don't always do everything correctly.
What?
So the question is that when the head of household messes up, when he drops the ball, what happens? Who holds him accountable? And I think a lot of people have this misconception that the taken in hand should somehow call out the head of household or hold some sort of accountability, or even have a conversation to say, hey, that wasn't right and that wasn't acceptable. But that's truly not your role and not your place or position.
Yes, I would say, first of all, that it never comes from the taken in hand. And actually, in my opinion, if taken in hands, if you want to see things get back on track really quick, that actually might be the way to do it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that is so detrimental. Because
no, it is really detrimental. In fact, it can really make your relationship worse if you think that that's an opportunity for you now to step in and say, well, I'm going to set him straight. Mm-hmm. Bad idea. Bad idea.
Because one of two things will happen. If you have a head of household that's very secure in their leadership and you do that, then it's going to lead to pretty severe punishment for you, because you just did the wrong thing, and you were very detrimentally wrong, because that is going against your role, your position. That's stepping outside of the authority of the head of household. That's disrespectful. It's disobedient. It's all the things, right? So if you have a head of household that's really strong in their leadership, then they are going to put you back in your place, and then it almost negates what they did, so they're not having to face their own mistakes in that process, because now you have shifted the focus onto what you did wrong. Or the flip side, if you have a head of household that's not very secure in their leadership, they might be maybe a little bit more not as confident as they need to be, then they're going to shrink, and you have just set your relationship back probably years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And this is what happened in our early relationship, is that when Coda was stepping up to try to hold me accountable for things, if I would push back or point out his flaws, point out what he was doing wrong, it made him shrink in his leadership, and really set us up to where we had to basically develop and grow for years to get to where we wanted to be. Where if I would have just been a more submissive taken in hand, if I would have just known my place and position, we wouldn't have had to kind of fight for years to figure out our roles, our positions, and what that's going to look like, because I wouldn't have created that damage in the relationship.
Yeah, and you don't realize when you make your head of household shrink like that, what that does. One of the things that you're taking from him is confidence. And to get confidence back, especially for a head of household, can be very, very difficult. And so you want to be very, very careful that you're not doing that sort of thing, because as Aria said, it's gonna set you back. And to get the confidence back, there are things right now that I'm getting better at, but that I'm still dealing with because of that confidence that I lost during those times.
Mm-hmm. And so you really want to recognize that as a taken in hand, your words, your behavior, and how you approach your head of household has the power to either build up and grow and develop your relationship in a positive way, or it has the potential to tear down your relationship and completely shift how things function for a long time. And I do regret those times that I just shattered Coda's confidence, because I desperately wanted him to be a confident head of household. And I think subconsciously I thought that by pushing those boundaries that I was going to create a response in him that would create confidence, and that's just not what happened. And like he said, he's still kind of reeling from those situations that happened. But we're finally starting to kind of get through that and to build on positive feedback more and more and more. But back to who holds the head of household accountable?
Okay, so it's not the taking it in the hand. Who is it? This may surprise some of you, but it's the head of household who holds the head of household accountable. Now you may go, well, how can you hold yourself accountable? Well, it's really easy. We know if we're being truthful when we've failed, when we've messed up. I know that I've messed up. And how do I know that? Because I see the effect that it has on my taken in hand. I see what happens. I either see her spiral out of control. I see how she has lost confidence in my leadership and is potentially losing respect. And usually that, not usually, every time that happens, I see behavior that goes along with that. And so something that could have been a simple correction then potentially becomes a punishment, right? And then I have to follow through. It forces me to have to follow through where I should have followed through before. So in other words, there are natural consequences that happen because I didn't do something, because I didn't hold her accountable, because I didn't follow through with something. So when I mess up, the natural consequences hold me accountable, but also I have to look at myself in the mirror and go, you missed it, buddy. You totally messed it up. But is that a good thing? Yeah, it is a good thing because that's where growth happens, but also that's where a head of household is able to go, okay, what do I need to do better next time? He goes through an assessment process because he has to, again, look himself in the mirror and go, I messed up, I screwed up, and I'm going to hold myself accountable next time to not have to go through this again.
And one thing that you said that was really important there is that if the head of household's mistake leads to a response in the taken in hand that is inappropriate, you still need to follow through on accountability because a mistake does not fix a mistake, and allowing her behavior, her bad behavior, to go unaddressed is a mistake. So we have it in our relationship, and we've negotiated this, we've talked about this, that I am held accountable for my behavior regardless of what Coda is doing.
Yep.
I'm held accountable for my mood, my demeanor, my behavior, my countenance, regardless of what the situation is, who created the situation, what the circumstances are. And ultimately, if I behave poorly, if I respond poorly, if I just have a bad attitude because of something that Coda has done, and he follows through and holds me accountable, rectifying the mistake that he made in the first place, because, not holding me accountable would be another mistake, and then then it just snowballs.
Yep.
A mistake turns into another mistake that turns into another mistake, and at some point, you have to step in and stop making mistakes. And we've just created it and had the conversation that that point is going to be the second mistake, that you are not going to allow yourself to make a second mistake by not holding me accountable in that moment. And
well, it's that old adage of two wrongs don't make a right, right?
And so when he holds me accountable, going through the process of asserting your authority and righting the situation, putting me back into my place and my position in the relationship, that creates more confidence in you and helps you work through the original mistake in the first place, does it not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, and that's why I was kind of saying that, like, the natural consequences hold me accountable. And what I mean by natural consequences is because, let's say Aria earned a correction and I didn't follow through with that, but her behavior starts to spiral. Well, now I've got to hold her accountable, most likely with a punishment. So what are the natural consequences of that? Well, now what could have been an easy correction is now a long punishment, accompanied by a lecture, accompanied by, however long it takes in that punishment, depending on what she did, right? What rule she violated, the whole thing. So you can see how that snowballs into, we were talking about on a past episode, how, you need to get through this barrier of it being an inconvenience or anything. But each thing still takes time, right? So the thing that could have taken the least amount of time if you would have held her accountable with a correction, now it's going to take more, which is the natural consequences, because now you've got to do a punishment and you've got to set things right. And on top of that, you've got to do the punishment. You do need to apologize and say, I'm sorry, I should have followed through with this. I needed to hold you accountable. I will do this. It's just all of the whole process is going to take more time and energy, which is important, but at the same time, you could have avoided it by just following through. And so the natural consequences are going to hold you accountable.
Well, and even beyond that, let's say that I didn't earn anything.
Okay.
Let's just say that there was a past story time that I did, and it was back during the holidays.
Okay.
And we walked in and the house was a wreck because our dog had ripped everything up. And you responded poorly.
Yeah, I sure
In
did.
that moment, I had the choice to either step up and help you, be a helper, submit to what needed to happen, or what I actually did was respond poorly. I responded poorly to the fact that you got upset.
Yeah.
And I shut down, I closed myself off, and I allowed that to affect how I approached you and how I fulfilled my role. So ultimately, that did lead to a spanking for me, even though I didn't do anything wrong initially. That did lead to a spanking for me because I still have the expectation to control my responses, to fulfill my role, to be your helper, to respond appropriately, and I didn't do those things.
And so it goes back to exactly what we were saying, right? Because I responded poorly to that situation, I created a whole nother set of problems in her that I then needed to take care of. And so again, it's the natural consequences of what you decide to do or not to do. And so even in that scenario, you're holding yourself accountable.
And in that scenario, if I were to have just stepped up, been the helper that you needed me to be, submit to you, and not let your behavior affect my own, I would not have gotten a spanking.
No.
I would not,
Nope.
and it would have been completely on you to then come and apologize and rectify that mistake with
Exactly.
me. And it's all about building connection, right? It's all about when a head of household messes up, he needs to acknowledge his mistake, recognize what he did, apologize for it, and rebuild the connection with his taken in hand. And that doesn't always mean that you're holding her accountable for something, because if she doesn't actually earn anything in the process, then you don't need to hold accountability. Don't spank her just because you messed up, just because you want to rebuild connection, unless that is actually what is needed and necessary. And you'll know in your own relationship, you'll know if that is what she needs in order to feel reconnected. You'll know if she actually earned something and you need to take care of that in order to clear the air. But if she didn't earn it, if she doesn't need it, then don't spank her just to spank her. But you do need to find a way to acknowledge your mistake and rebuild that connection. And that is how a head of household holds himself accountable, is he recognizes his mistake. He is assessing himself just as much as he is assessing his taken in hand. And he is doing so to be able to move forward in the relationship.
The biggest takeaway is in any scenario, you have to be okay with the guy that you see in the mirror. So when you look in that mirror, are you okay with the image that's staring back at you? And then the saying finishes, if you're not, then go do something about it so you can be happy with the guy you see in the mirror.
So that's all about integrity.
That's right.
You want to be a man of integrity. You want to be a head of household that has integrity. You want to hold yourself to the highest standard possible, at least the same standard that you're holding or taken in hand, if not an elevated version of those standards. You want to make sure that anything you are asking her to do, that you are doing yourself, and you're leading by example. And when you don't, when you fall short, then you apologize, you recognize it, you rectify it, you rebuild that connection, and then you don't do it again. And that is ultimately how a head of household is held accountable. Now, beyond that, there are things out in the world that a head of household is held accountable for, natural consequences within society and the workplace. And so there are other situations, but we're kind of just talking about within the relationship right now.
So don't cheat the man in the mirror, because if you cheat him, you're also going to wind up cheating your taken in hand. So that's where I love how that phrase finishes. Don't cheat the man looking back at you in the mirror.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this question video. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Also, leave a question down below if you want us to answer a question that you have, and we will talk to you next time.
See you later.